Or they could deal with it diplomatically. You might be like, no, Israelis are too. They would never deal with
I get
Hezbollah
it.
diplomatically.
I'm with
they
you.
Did before. They did
well,
I,
maybe, but I hear you, but I think that Israel is way too far gone right now. I don't think
they can go back to it. If the Americans pull out, they have no choice.
Oh yeah,
you
if the Americans,
earlier,
yeah,
you mentioned an important point earlier. Let me mention the point you said. You said one of the reasons the Israelis are pulling out is not because of diplomacy; it's because they faced a lot of damage because of Hezbollah attacks. One of my guests was telling me, Elijah Magnier earlier today, my first guest of the morning. He was telling me the Hezbollah doesn't mind the Israelis going into Lebanon because they stretch them out thin,
right,
weaker on the flanks, and they pick them off with drones.
That's exactly right.
That's the point you made. That's one of the reasons why they'd be pulling out, which kind of makes the point I'm making is that the Israelis may have no choice but to deal with Hezbollah diplomatically.
Well, in a perfect world, yes. But again, this depends on those leaders being rational actors. And this is the big question that you and I think have been trying to answer for several weeks. How rational are the people running the show, not just in Israel, but here in the U.S. and also in Iran? How rational are the people running Hezbollah? I don't know. Maybe you're right. Maybe this thing, we've exhausted it, and the rational thing to do is now we talk. I don't know, though, because there are still a couple of moves that haven't been played yet, and I think they're crazy. But if you're not totally rational and you're totally committed to this idea that we have to have a security cordon and you don't want to deal with Hezbollah in any way, maybe that's why this discussion of Jelani. Now you got me calling him Shara. This discussion of Jelani keeps coming up because it's come up repeatedly now, not just from Trump's mouth. It's come up the last 2 weeks quite a bit in conversation.
From Israel, yeah. Apparently there was a report by I-24 that the Netanyahu was convening the security cabinet, whatever they call it, a couple of days ago to discuss the possibility of Syria entering Lebanon. I know it's a possibility. I'm telling you, that was 3 days ago. It concerned me when I saw Trump's comments towards Erdogan. I don't want to dismiss it. But do you know how terrifying that is?
Oh, it'd be horrible. It's getting worse and worse and worse for the region if that's the case. I mean, there's no winning
insane.
Here.
That's insane.
But on some level, this is what my point is. On some level, I mean, you don't think people weren't sitting around in World War I going, well, they can't possibly do this because that would be insane. And then, oh, look, now that's happening. So like this gets back to Robert Pape and his theories on escalation and whatnot. I mean, it takes on a life of its own, especially when you have really not pragmatic leaders. You have ideological leaders who believe in the myth. And, Netanyahu has his own mythos that he's buying into, but so does Trump. You listen to Trump talk about the military, and God love him because, I love the military too. I do a lot of consulting with the military, but ultimately Trump has a very 1980s Rambo view of United States military power. He does not understand that there are actual real limits to what the U.S. military, especially right now, real limits to what we can accomplish with force. There's no appreciation of that. He is completely gung-ho about, I've won 30 times. And I think that's more than just braggadocio on his part. I think he really thinks the military can do it, but the military can't do it. But he doesn't seem to quite fully grasp that. And certainly Netanyahu.
Even now after this war?
Even now, I think he's deluded. I think he has a delusional mindset. And I think that's being reinforced by his aides. And I think Netanyahu's delusional as well. The only ones who don't seem to be delusional here are Hezbollah and Iran, which is very scary, because I certainly don't think they're playing with a full deck of cards, but they do seem to have it more together right now than we do in terms of formulating strategy.
So now the question, how do you think Iran would retaliate to the bombing? So let me give you updates on that front. All right, so we have a U.S. official told CNN Friday, so today's strike does not reflect a return to major combat operations, at least for now. Useless comment, but
it never does, right? But somehow it always ends up that way.
Not always. ERIB, 2 projectiles struck telecommunications. And what's funny is like I'm the less positive person in life. I'm a more serious person, etc. And you're like the bubble of energy and positivity.
Oh, yeah.
We talk politics. I'm like, everything's fine. The war's going to end. Brandon's like,
you normie.
So ERIB reported 2 projectiles struck a telecommunications tower in Sirik. And And then Tasnim said Iranian media reports that the U.S. has violated the ceasefire and MOU with Iran following U.S. military strikes near the Strait of Hormuz. According to Tasnim, explosions were heard moments ago, and they talk about where.
Yeah.
So that's just updates. Well, how do you think Iran would retaliate?
Well, like I said, I still think if the smarter play is to keep everything confined to the Strait, because ultimately the goal, I would think, and again, this requires pure rationality, and I don't think even the Iranians are purely rational. But the smarter play would be to keep everything confined to the Strait, and because what you're trying to do.
You did answer the sorry, man. I did ask you the question, and you did answer. Yeah, they'll keep it closed. Sorry, you did answer.
No, it's fine. I mean, I think it's bears repeating because I could be very wrong about this. But my view is, I think Tehran wants to keep everything confined to the economic sphere because they're not actually. I mean, they are fighting Israel, obviously, but they.
Do you agree with me? Sorry, I'll add a paragraph.
No, please.
Give more context. Yeah. Do you agree with me what I said earlier that Iran will not strike the Gulf and will take a lot more to strike the Gulf than
I think it would take a lot more. Well, I think the UAE is a special exemption because the UAE is very close to Israel and the US, but I think most of the rest
there might be distancing. There's a lot.
There's no doubt, but that's going to take time in the minds of Iran for them to acknowledge that, is my point. But there's absolutely, I think the UAE is starting to distance because they realize that it's a suicide pact. But ultimately, I think that with the exception of countries like the UAE, because of that previous proximity, I don't think the Iranians want to hit the Arab states right now, because I think the Iranians recognize that, which you pointed out earlier when I've been saying, which is that the Gulf Arab states are inherently moving closer diplomatically now to Iran, and that benefits Iran in the long run. So why rock that boat by attacking them? I think in a sensible response, the Iranians, the ultimate play for Iran is to get American power over the horizon, get them as diminished as possible in the Middle East by pushing them out of the region. And you do that by putting your foot down on the jugular of the Strait of Hormuz. You don't do that by hitting the Arab states. I mean, yeah, you damage the infrastructure, but you do that by focusing like a laser on the Strait of Hormuz, because every time they do something to the Strait of Hormuz, Donald Trump starts going crazy. So, and things start happening. So that's where if they're smart, they're going to, and by the way, that's probably the least worst option for everybody. But if they're going to retaliate, I would think it's going to be confined to the Strait, because if they do anything more, they risk really unintended escalation as well. Right now, they keep everything confined to the Strait. It's a nuisance, but it's not going to kill anybody necessarily. They still maintain some kind of moral high ground, and it forces the Americans to start acting in a way that will be more commiserate with Iranian interests. So
the head of the Iranian Parliament's National Security Commission, Ibrahim Azizi, put out a statement. Before I read it, I have a question quickly for you. Do you think the American attack was justified, considering Iran was attacking ships?
Well, yeah, in that specific context, fine, but that risks escalation, right? It's a tit for tat. Now we're back on the escalation ladder. But yeah, morally speaking, if you want to inject morality into this, yeah, Iran should not have blown up that ship. The U.S. should not have used its leverage with Oman to rapidly push out this alternative path. They should have stayed away and let the locals figure it out. That's the key. You got to let the locals figure it out. The point that, listen, my ultimate objective, let me just tell you, my bias is this. My ultimate objective is not worrying about who controls the strait. It's not worrying about Litani River rights. My ultimate objective is bringing the legions home. We have done more damage to ourselves as well as the region by having such a heavy-handed presence there. And the only way we're going to stop having that heavy-handed reaction there is if we get the infrastructure back to the United States, get it out of the region. So that's why I'm saying this.
Yeah, let me read
I lost my train of thought. Sorry, I'm having a senior moment, I guess. I live in Florida, so the sun gets to you.
So the Speaker of the Parliament said, the head of the Parliament's National Security Commission said the following, the Iranian. The U.S. attacked Iran in the middle of negotiations once again. The failed U.S. president has shown he has no commitment to the principles of negotiation or a ceasefire. This reckless violation of the ceasefire will, as always, lead to retreat and regret on their part. The blame game does not work anymore.
Yeah.
Is there a possibility they won't retaliate at all?
That's very possible, because I think they will retaliate on some level, but it is possible because the Iranians, like I said, seem to have a very firm grasp on the strategic situation. That's not to say that they have total control over the situation, but if they're being smart, the best options for them are either to do nothing because, hey, it's going to play out in their favor anyway because of the way sort of momentum is working in this thing, or they do something confined to the Strait. Those would be the two smartest plays. That's not to say they're going to do it, though. They could go full bore. This is the problem with war, is that you're not dealing with automatons. You're not dealing with perfectly functional, rational machines. You're dealing with the human mind, the beast, right? And they could overreact. And by the way, because they decentralized so much to survive the American and Israeli air attacks, there is a chance you're going to have some, not necessarily rogue, but you'll have some field commander who's have a lot of power, and he doesn't get the message, hey, don't retaliate. I mean, you have that as a real possibility here. The command and control situation in Iran is not foolproof because of the decentralization.
I have an interesting theory someone mentioned to me today. He said, Mario, there could be factions within the Iranian government. They're the ones that are attacking the ships and derailing the negotiations. And he went on and said, I can't remember who it was. He said, there's a possibility that there's a deal behind the scenes with the Iranians and the Americans. They're like, hey, these are the factions. This is where they're located. Can you strike them? Because if the Iranians attack their own, then it would show lack of cohesion. It would show weakness. It would cause potentially more issues within Iran and more division within Iran between the people that don't agree with the MOU, the ones that do. So they might have had an agreement with the Americans to strike those factions.
Maybe. I mean, it's not the first time that's not unheard of. I mean, we did something similar in the run up to the Iraq War. We made secret deals stupidly with the Iranians. We blew up a bunch of, the MEK facilities in Iraq as part of the deal that we made with them. We helped them during the war with ISIS. So it's not impossible, but I think that's putting too much faith in rationality here. I think in this case, I think there are divisions. I think there are factions, and I think the decentralized command and control, while it helped the Iranians survive the war the way they have, there are downside risks. And one of them is we know that it's not a monolithic regime. I mean, look, you had during the negotiations in Switzerland, you had a group of Iranian IRGC and some of their parliament members undercutting the deal even before they could meet with J.D. Vance. Right, last week there was all this stuff coming out. You had one of the leaders in the parliament saying that the Ayatollah wasn't consulted. You had apparently the Ayatollah was annoyed at one point because there was provisions that were being put forward that were agreed to that he was not fully aware of. You have the IRGC saying their foreign minister is going rogue and acting without consulting the IRGC and the Ayatollah in Tehran. So there are a lot of divisions even on the Iranian side, and they're not coming out of this thing. They don't make any mistake. I'm not saying they're coming out of this thing scot-free. They're not. They've been damaged. They've lost a lot of their leadership. What I'm saying, though, is they're faring better at the strategic level than we are, and that's where it counts. So it is possible that some of this kinetic activity that's still going on is not condoned by the central authority of Iran, that it's being undertaken by these field commanders who have a lot of power right now.
And last thing I want to cover with you as we get close to wrapping up is Lebanon. That deal between the two countries, Israel and Lebanon, with the limited information, but Israel pulling out of some of the territory and a plan. Let me see if I've got more information on it, because I think I read a bit more, not too much more. It's very limited right now. We know what Hezbollah's warned about. I'll read out Netanyahu's statement. It's a long one, but I think he does give a bit of context on what's in it. Okay. I want to announce a major achievement of the state of Israel. First and foremost, Israel is remaining in the security zone in southern Lebanon. This is a major achievement, and we will maintain it as long as Hezbollah has not been disarmed and as long as there's a threat to the state of Israel. So your comments on this. This deal involves Israel remaining in a lot of the territory they've already occupied. I think the majority of it. And they won't pull out unless Hezbollah disarms, which goes against the Iranian deal. Your take on how far the Lebanese government will go and how far Iran will go to make sure Clause 1 is applied.
Well, I think the Lebanese government does actually want to see a diminishment of Hezbollah. I think that's been very consistent the last few years. Ever since the Pagers operation, they've been trying to figure out how they can avoid this very scenario, right, where the Israelis move in force into southern Lebanon. Ultimately, though, I don't believe the Israelis will ever give up that ground. I think that this is now a matter of policy. Like I said, they want to create what they perceive as a security cordon to their north. And giving that up would be very existentially dangerous for the northern security of Israel. So they're not going to give up the territory they have. They might reposition, they might pull back a little bit, but they're not giving up that frontier any more than they're going to give up the frontier they've created for themselves in Syria. Remember, as soon as Jelani took over, the Israelis moved in up to, what was it, the mountain there? I'm forgetting the name of the mountain now. But so this is part of that. Yeah, this is part of that new security cordon from basically the Sinai up through the West Bank, up to parts of Syria, up to now that strip of southern Lebanon. That the Israelis have taken. They're going to try to hold that, and this is part of a new security cordon that they're creating around their country. We can call it Greater Israel, or we can call it a security cordon, whatever, but that's what they're doing. So no, I don't believe they will ever cede that territory back to Lebanon. I think Lebanon is hoping that they can show goodwill by going after Hezbollah. I think there's also some self-interest here. You know, Hezbollah has political influence in Beirut, and I think that a lot of Lebanese government doesn't like that because they know that it's not just a Shiite Lebanese movement. It's doing a lot of dealings with Iran. It receives a lot of help from Iran, and it's not falling under the control of the Lebanese central government. So they don't like that. Something similar happened in Iraq during the surge, right, where there was this sort of, you had all these militias and the central government was trying to exert control over them. So something similar might be happening here in Lebanon. They're doing this because of their own interest. But Hezbollah is not going to disarm. Yeah. Hezbollah is not going to cede to either. They're not going to cede to the Lebanese government because I don't think they really respect or trust the Lebanese government. And the Lebanese government is too weak on its own to really force them to disarm. And the Hezbollah is not going to ever disarm because Israel's not going anywhere. They're not giving up that territory without a fight. It's
not only that. Plus, Iran would like that forward
absolutely. Although it is complicated for Iran right now because remember their supply lines cut through Assad's Syria, and part of the reason that we pushed Jelani to take over Syria and get rid of Assad is because we wanted to cut those supply lines into Lebanon.
He's too weak to cut him.
I understand that, but I'm just saying, like, it is complicated for them. It's not as foolproof as it was when Assad was running things.